Heartwarming revelation. 5 incredible truths exposed in court transformed my life forever. Emma Harris felt her heart race as she stood outside the courtroom, a steely resolve in her eyes. The whispers of Maplewood echoed around her like a choir of judgment. She braced herself for what was to come, knowing the weight of her family's past was about to unfold. The thought of her 2 daughters, Jenna and Lily, waiting outside filled her with a mix of dread and determination. Every day began before the dawn broke, as she cooked pancakes and packed lunches, a one-woman show. Her girls looked up to her, mirroring her quiet strength even as their laughter lingered through the air like sweet music. But today, the laughter felt distant. Today, everything could change. As she stepped inside, the courtroom felt like a battleground. People lined the benches, their faces carrying hope, skepticism, and a longing for justice. Emma swallowed hard, feeling the weight of her father's resurfacing, a ghost she'd buried in the deepest corners of her heart. George, her estranged father, was a man shaped by war, bearing scars that went beyond the visible. Moments before the trial started, the air crackled with tension. Emma's mind raced with memories of her father's absence. After years of silence, he walked back into their lives, a hurricane of emotion wrapped in a weathered coat, carrying a secret that threatened to unravel everything she had built. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Just as the judge entered, Emma felt a tightening in her chest, a reminder of all the sacrifices she'd made for her daughters. She was a beacon of perseverance, chasing her own version of the American dream. But would the truth about the family farm, a piece of land tied to their identity, shatter the delicate world she'd created? As the trial unfolded, emotions soared. Memories flashed before her, echoing through the gallery. Emma could see the community supporting her, yet dark shadows whispered beneath the surface, questions of loyalty, past betrayals, and the power of forgiveness. Each witness pulled the curtain back, revealing hidden truths, and the courtroom murmured with collective breaths. Then came the moment. A staggering revelation, words spilling out like a wound reopened. Emma stood frozen as she grasped the weight of the secret about her family history. Did her father abandon them, or was there more to this story? The crowd around her gasped. Hope battled with despair. Caught in a whirlwind of emotion, Emma faced the swirling winds of outrage and compassion. She could feel the community leaning into her, willing her to find strength. Her heart raced, filled with a yearning for connection, while memories of betrayal lingered like echoes of a lost dream. As the gavel came down, she stood at a precipice. Would she emerge from the ashes of her family's past renewed and empowered? The answer hovered just out of reach like a mirage on a hot summer day, hinting at something beautiful yet tumultuous. Would redemption breathe life into her grief, or would the shadows of yesterday threaten to snuff out the light of her future? Emma knew the fight was just beginning. The air in the courtroom hung heavy with uncertainty. Emma's heart drummed a hasty beat against her ribcage as she tried to steady her mind. With every word that echoed off the cold, gray walls, the confusion and hurt buried deep inside her clawed their way back to the surface. Today could change everything. The judge's voice cut through the murmurs of the crowd, and the atmosphere shifted. Emma's eyes narrowed as she locked onto the figure of her father, George, seated in the defendant's chair. She barely recognized the man before her, rumpled and weary, yet somehow still exuding a presence. A lifetime of bitterness and mistrust surged through her. How could he sit there, after all this time, as if the years of absence didn't matter? As the trial resumed, stories of their family's history began to unfold, each one a thread weaving a tapestry of half-truths and painful memories. With every revelation about the farm, the debts, and the struggles, they painted a picture that splintered her heart. The farm was not just land, it was a legacy, a reminder of her childhood and the warmth of home. But it had also become a symbol of everything lost, everything broken. Emma, the attorney called, breaking her reverie. Can you tell the court about the day your father left? The question hung heavily in the air, and the intensity of the moment constricted her throat. Could she relive that day, the day when hope turned to sorrow? Suddenly, she was there again, a young girl with pigtails chasing after a figure disappearing down the gravel road, a weight of confusion and betrayal settling in her small chest. I thought he was just going to get milk, she whispered, her voice barely rising above the whispers. He never came back. The words tasted bitter, and she could already feel the walls closing in, faces around her displaying sympathy and shock. But alongside their compassion was a clamor of questions, doubts. Why had George chosen to leave? Where had he been all those years? As she glanced around the courtroom, the faces of her daughters flooded her mind. She was determined not to let their hopes and dreams be overshadowed by the shadows of the past. Jenna and Lily represented everything bright and good in her life. She couldn't allow their future to be clouded by their grandfather's mistakes. She could feel them outside, waiting for any news, and a surge of determination fueled her onward. The trial pressed ahead, more testimonies rolled in, some in defense of her father, some damning him with accusations, a maelstrom of conflicting emotions. Emma battled each new claim like it was a punch to the gut. Each word about George's choices, his hesitations, unsettled the fragile ground she'd built beneath her. Did they really have the right to define who he was? But more than the pain, a new feeling took hold. Maybe there was room for forgiveness. Maybe conquering the past also meant understanding it, weighty as it was. As the testimonies drew to a close, a thread of hope crept into her heart. The courtroom buzzed with conversations filled with both empathy and judgment as Emma clutched the wooden rail in front of her. She was at a crossroads. She took a deep breath, ready to speak, to confront her father, to challenge the silence that had defined so much of her life. You don't get to decide my story anymore, she asserted. The power of her words reverberated around the room, a declaration of independence. Would she choose to step into the unknown with her father, or would fear pull her back into the shadows? The clock ticked, and with it ticked the seconds towards revelations yet to come, where the embrace of truth might be the very thing that saved them all. Emma's heart raced as she stood there, words still lingering in the air like smoke. The echoes of her declaration settled around her, a protective barrier against the ache of her past. She could feel the weight of the moment, everyone waiting for the next move, and there it was, the chance to change everything. In that tense silence, George shifted in his seat. He looked at her with eyes that spoke of regret, perhaps longing. Emma's breath caught as she studied the lines of his face, etched deeply with years of struggle. Did he feel any remorse? Did he truly care, or was this about him all along? She fought the urge to back down, to stay silent again like all those years before. Emma, George finally said, his voice surprisingly steady, you think I didn't care? I did. I thought I was protecting you. The courtroom fell preternaturally silent again. Half-truths filled the space like fog, thick and suffocating. Emma's stomach twisted. Protecting her? By leaving? Her mind raced through memories, moments of feeling abandoned. She pushed down the urge to scream. Instead, she took a step toward him. You left me to deal with everything alone, she replied, voice rising in pitch. You ran away, and where did that leave us? You broke our family. A wave of murmurs swept through the courtroom as spectators shifted in their seats, vulnerable glances skimming from George to Emma and back again. Would this confrontation be the moment it all changed, or would it be yet another instance of disappointment? Listen, he pleaded, raising his hand. I know I was wrong. But I was young and afraid. The pressures mounted. Your mother, she was losing faith in me, and I thought if I left, I could find a way to fix it. I thought, maybe I'd come back when things were better. Emma clenched her fists, the anger boiling beneath the surface. Every claim he made had been followed by years of absence. But beneath that anger flickered a flame of curiosity. Did he really believe he could spin another story? Would it change anything? What about all the years I spent wondering, waiting for a father who never came back, she challenged. What about all the sleepless nights when I had to convince myself I wasn't enough? Tears pricked at the corners of her eyes as the tension in the room grew dense. Emma blinked them away, refusing to show weakness. She was tired of needing him, tired of being cast in a shadow of hope that never materialized. Then, unexpectedly, something shifted in her. A warmth spread through her chest, illuminating the darkest corners where resentment lurked. Could forgiveness dwell here? Was it possible that the burden of moving forward didn't solely rely on him? A notion began to unfurl, a chance to reclaim her narrative, not just for herself but for her daughters. They could rise above. With steely resolve, Emma found her voice again. Maybe what we both need is to step out of this courtroom and go home. Together. Start anew. But that means you need to be honest, truly honest about what happened. Gasps echoed through the room. Eyes widened in disbelief. Emma felt a mix of fear and exhilaration. It was one thing to confront, but to propose a path forward? A silence fell as George absorbed her words, hope and uncertainty warring in his gaze. Could he face the truth? Would he take the first step in this long journey of rebuilding trust? Emma held her breath, both terrified and hopeful, hanging in the balance as the clock ticked on, marking time towards what was yet to be revealed. Emma's gaze locked with George's, each second stretching like a taut string, ready to snap. The murmurs in the courtroom faded into a dull roar, her world narrowing down to this moment, this choice. Would he meet her challenge, or would he crumble like so many times before? Just be honest, George, she urged, her voice barely above a whisper. Each word was heavy with the weight of everything she'd stored up over the years. No more excuses. He blinked, a faint flicker of fear crossing his face. Emma's heart ached at the sight. To her surprise, it was in that moment, standing face to face with her father, that she felt something she hadn't in years, empathy. She could see the man behind his mistakes, the boy who had once been scared and lost. I was terrified, he said, his voice breaking. I thought I was doing the right thing by leaving. I didn't know how to be the father you needed. She wanted to scream. It wasn't enough. All those years alone, all the times she had to piece together a life without him, the shadows of his absence loomed larger than any regret he could express. You still could have tried, she protested, but the bite in her tone softened. You're right. I should have fought harder, he admitted, his eyes gleaming with unshed tears. But every time I thought about coming back, I felt so ashamed. I couldn't face you, or your mother. I couldn't even face myself. The onlookers shifted in their seats, the silence now charged with a palpable tension. Emma felt the knot in her stomach loosen just a bit. Could this be the start of something genuine? What do you want now, George? She pushed gently. What do you want to do to make it right? He took a deep breath, visibly steeling himself. I want to prove to you that I can be there for you now. Not for me, but for you and your daughters. I want to make amends. I know it won't be easy, but I want to try. I will fight this time. Could she trust him? Emma's mind whirled. She glanced at the empty seats where her daughters had been earlier, their bright faces flashing in her memory. Could she forgive enough to let George back into their lives? The idea filled her with warmth but flickered with fear. What would they think? Her heart raced, pounding against her ribcage. If we do this, you can't ever leave again. No matter how hard things get. It's not just about us anymore. My girls, he nodded, fervently. I promise, Emma. I won't go anywhere. I'll be there. This time, I'll show you I want to be part of your life. Emma felt a surge of hope but also a heavy caution. It was difficult to shake off years of betrayal and pain. Yet somehow, a sliver of light pierced the storm inside her. If they could find a way, maybe it would be worth it. Before she could voice anything further, the judge's gavel struck, pulling everyone from their thoughts back to reality. This court session has revealed much, but it seems we're just beginning to scratch the surface of what needs to be addressed. I propose an adjournment to allow the parties involved to have a heart-to-heart off the record. As the judge's words settled over the room, Emma felt that strange mix of dread and excitement welling up within her. The courtroom began to empty, people standing, chairs scraping against the floor. Emma caught George's eye once more. "Do you really mean it? Are you ready to be a father?" He stepped closer, earnestness etched across his features. "More than anything. But you need to tell me you're willing to try too." Together. A million thoughts raced through her mind. Would she take that step and open her home to the man who had caused her so much pain? As the crowd filtered away, the two stood alone at the heart of that courtroom, the weight of years behind them, and an uncertain future looming ahead. Emma realized the hardest part wasn't just deciding to forgive, it was truly believing things could be different this time. "Then let us go talk," she finally said, heart both lighter and heavier at once. They turned toward the exit, a door to the past behind them and a path to something new looming ahead. But just then, a voice rang out from beyond the door, halting them both in their tracks. "Wait. You can't just leave this behind. You have to confront the truth first." Emma froze, the air thickening around them, her heart pounding anew. What truth could be lurking outside those courtroom walls? Emma's pulse quickened as she turned toward the source of that voice. A woman stood there, her brow furrowed and her hands clenched at her sides. There was a fire in her eyes, a sense of urgency that made it clear she wasn't about to let them slip away unnoticed. "Who are you?" George asked, confusion mingling with unease. "I'm Sarah," she said, stepping fully into view. "I've been watching this case unfold, and I can't just stand by. You need to hear what I have to say." Her tone was firm, as if she held a secret that could shatter the fragile air between them. Emma exchanged a glance with George, her heart racing. The promise of addressing their dark history still hung in the air, but now there was an added tension, a sense of something unresolved. "What do you know?" Emma asked, her voice steady despite the tremor beneath. "More than you think," Sarah replied, a flicker of sadness crossing her face. "You might not realize how interconnected your lives really are. There are truths about George and about you, Emma." George's face paled, and Emma felt a knot form in her gut. "What kind of truths?" she pressed, her voice firm but a little shaky. "There are things that happen outside of our control, decisions, mistakes, life events that shape who we are. George made choices, yes, but so did you, Emma," Sarah began, her gaze darting between them. "You've both been carrying burdens that don't belong solely to you. It's time to unpack them." The word struck Emma like a physical blow. She felt caught in the tides of her emotions, anger, betrayal, but also a budding curiosity. Was it possible she had a part in this after all? "Just tell us," George urged, his voice threaded with urgency. "If there is something I need to know or something I can do." Sarah took a deep breath, her eyes misty but resolute. "Emma, do you remember the day your mom left?" The memory came at her like a shadow, haunting and heavy. It was a day stained with heartbreak and confusion, the walls of her childhood home echoing with silence. "Yeah," she replied slowly. "Why?" "That day was a catalyst for many things, the decisions that followed, the choices that led us here. But there is more, Emma. Your mother had reasons, real fears, and they tie back to family traits you might not want to acknowledge," Sarah continued, her voice softening. Emma felt anger bubble up again, pulling her back for a moment. "You don't know anything about my family," she snapped, the defensiveness simmering as old memories clawed back to the surface. But Sarah pressed on. "I do. I got involved in your story because I've seen it too many times. It's not just George's failures, it's a cycle. We must face the truth of our pasts to start anew." Emma hesitated, caught in a whirlpool of thoughts. The promise she had made to George was now tangled with doubts. "Look," George interjected, voice tender but strong, "if you believe we can process this, if it helps Emma heal, then we need to hear it. I want to fight. I can't face my past if it means dragging you down with me." Sarah stepped closer. "There's power in all of this," she offered, calm washing over the storm. "But only if you want to embrace it. For a moment, Emma felt her heart flicker with a sense of solidarity. Could facing the truth really change things? George took a step toward her, desperation in his eyes. Whatever this truth is, I'm in it with you. We'll tackle it together. Emma looked at him, knowing this was a pivotal moment. The shadows of the past loomed, threatening to pull her back into darkness. Would uncovering the truth bring healing or more pain? Sarah's determined gaze met Emma's, urging her to decide. Are you willing to hear this truth? She asked, the intensity palpable. As the courtroom's echo faded around them, Emma took a deep breath, ready to plunge into the depths of their histories intertwined. Then let us hear it, Emma replied, voice steadier than she felt. A choice had been made, but what truth awaited them on the other side? Emma could feel her heart pounding in her chest. It was a mix of hope and dread as she met Sarah's unwavering gaze. She wondered what kind of truth could bind their lives in ways they had yet to understand. The air was thick with anticipation, and George's presence beside her provided a small measure of comfort. Okay, Sarah began, her voice steady but laced with compassion. Let us start with your mother. There were more obstacles than you know, family issues that led her to make the choice to leave. You believed it was a personal abandonment, but it stemmed from something deeper, a fear she couldn't confront. Emma clenched her fists, fighting back the sting of tears. But why didn't she at least try to explain? That day shattered everything for me. I know it seems selfish, but sometimes people can't see beyond their pain. Sarah paused, taking a moment to collect her thoughts. There's a legacy of fear in your family, Emma. Your mother ran from it, and in a way, you've inherited that same instinct. What do you mean inherited? George asked, his voice low but firm, as if he was trying to grasp the wild concept of family traits being passed down. Emotional patterns, unresolved traumas, they can be like chains. Each generation carries the weight of them. Sarah looked deeply into Emma's eyes, her sincerity almost palpable. You've both fought hard against what you feared, but the cycle doesn't break until you acknowledge it. A heavy silence fell among them, filled only with the soft sounds of distant voices and rustling papers in the courtroom. Emma looked at George, trying to measure the depths of their shared pain. Could such truths set them free? Go on, Emma whispered, her voice barely audible. Sarah nodded, launching into the next revelation. George, I know you've thought of your mistakes as solitary. But the choices you made weren't just because of who you are. They were influenced by your family's history too. I saw it through your father's struggles. George winced, the truth hitting him hard. He wasn't perfect, no one is, Sarah replied gently. But understanding where that pain came from could shift your perspective. Emma watched George grapple with that truth, the weight of it settling in. She could see him slowly unearthing the layers he had buried for so long. The air seemed charged with the electric possibility of healing. Her choice wasn't solely about you, Emma, Sarah continued, her gaze moving back to her. Your mother feared everything you've tried to protect against, addiction, dysfunction. She didn't want to pass that legacy down. Then what? Should I just forgive her? Emma felt the rage bubble at the injustice, angered by the thought of her mom getting a free pass on her hurt. Forgiveness doesn't mean excusing the past, Sarah replied softly, her eyes filled with empathy. It's about breaking free from the shadows that hold you back. You can choose to stop carrying it. Emma's breaths came in quick bursts, her mind racing. Could she really let go of the pain? George took her hand. His grip was firm and grounding, a tiny beacon of hope amid the storm. We can work through this, together, he said, voice strong. A slight flicker of warmth ignited within Emma. There were cracks forming in her wall of resentment. Did this mean a pathway to healing truly existed? But just as she felt a glimmer of hope, Sarah's expression shifted, her brow furrowed once more. There's still more to uncover, truths that bind you both in ways you didn't see before. Are you ready for the next revelation? Emma and George exchanged anxious glances. Could they face whatever came next? This was just the beginning, but the weight of what still lay ahead pressed on them. What other truths awaited, and would they be more than either of them could bear? Emma felt her heart racing again, caught in the swirling uncertainty. Ready, Emma whispered, the word all that she could manage as the fear mingled with the need to break free from the past. They stood on the precipice of their histories, ready for whatever was about to unfold. What other connections could emerge from the shadows, and would it finally lead them to the healing they desperately sought? Sarah took a deep breath, her eyes darting between Emma and George, gauging their readiness. The air felt heavy, like a storm brewing, and Emma could almost taste the tension. It electrified her, awakening a mix of yearning and dread deep in her gut. Let us turn our attention to the idea of legacy a little more, Sarah continued, her voice steady yet kind. It's not just about your mother, Emma, and it's not just about your father, George. It's about how family histories intertwine, creating a web that connects the past, present, and future. Emma felt a shiver run down her spine. A web? Was it a beautiful tapestry or a snare waiting to trap her again? What do you mean? She pushed, desperate for clarity. Some legacies can be broken, and some can bind you tighter if you let them, Sarah said, her gaze unwavering. Emma, your mother's fear doesn't just belong to her. It attaches itself to you like an unwelcome shadow. And George, the mistakes of your past? They've affected Emma in ways you don't realize. George's brow furrowed as he processed what Sarah was saying. How could my life choices have anything to do with her? He asked, confusion wrestling with an emerging realization. Every action creates a ripple effect, Sarah explained. Emma's pain is shaped by the pain you both carry. It's a cycle you've both been trapped in it, unwilling to face how much the other's past has affected your lives. Emma's heart stopped. Something clicked inside her. She had never thought of George's struggles in relation to her own. So you're saying my mother's fear and your mistakes are somehow linked? Exactly, Sarah affirmed, her voice soothing yet firm. Your mother feared that she'd replicate the dysfunction that haunted her family. And George, your battles with addiction stemmed from your environment, from the hurt you inherited. Tears welled again in Emma's eyes, not from anger this time but from a sudden clarity. Was she truly meant to carry this weight? If we both inherited these patterns, how do we break free from them? It starts with acknowledging the truth, facing the legacies head-on, Sarah urged. You have the power to rewrite your story. But it requires vulnerability. George squeezed Emma's hand tighter. Vulnerability? He echoed, a hint of uncertainty in his voice. Being open about your feelings, your pain, and your fears, Sarah clarified. It's about letting the other person see you, truly see you. A silence enveloped them, allowing the enormity of their conversation to sink in. It was terrifying and liberating all at once. Emma glanced at George, and in his eyes, she saw her own fear reflected back. But there was also a flicker of hope, a tiny flame igniting between them. What if we don't know how? Emma whispered, her voice barely above a breath. What if facing it only brings more pain? Facing it will hurt, there's no way around that, Sarah admitted softly. But your growth will be on the other side. And healing can only begin when you accept the past's influence without letting it control your present. The heaviness in the room shifted slightly, a breath of fresh air mingling with the unease. Emma's heart raced with a mixture of anxiety and determination. Could they really navigate these stormy waters? Let us do it, then, George said, his voice suddenly resolute. Let us face it together. Emma's heart swelled with unexpected courage as she met his eyes again. All right. Together. But just as they seemed ready to carve a new path, Sarah's expression tightened once more, a hint of concern creeping into her features. There is something you both still don't know, a deeper connection between you two that could change everything. Emma's breath caught. What could that possibly be? Fear coiled in her stomach again, but beside her, George's grip was steady, anchoring her against the tumult of uncertainty. Are you ready for that? Sarah asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Emma nodded slowly, though doubt crept in. What else could she learn about themselves? What other truths awaited, lurking just out of sight? The room felt smaller, the air thicker as Sarah prepared to spill more of their intertwined truths. Emma could hardly breathe, but she was determined not to look away. George's fingers tightened around hers, grounding her as they both waited for Sarah to continue. Emma, George, Sarah said, her tone softer this time, the connection I speak of isn't about the past alone. It's about something that happened recently, something that may clarify the legacies you feel so burdened by. Emma felt a swell of impatience. What do you mean? Just tell us. Well, Sarah hesitated, searching for the right words. A little while ago, I learned some information about your family, Emma. Something I believe both of you need to hear. Emma's heart raced, the words clanging in her ears like a warning bell. What about my family? Sarah glanced down momentarily, a sign of vulnerability that Emma hadn't seen from her before. Your mother, she once spoke about a time in her life when she struggled to break free from fear. That part of her journey, it's more intertwined with George's story than you might think. George shifted in his seat, a flicker of curiosity crossing his face. What are you saying? I'm saying, Sarah began, her gaze steadying on each of them, that your mother had an experience with addiction, Emma. It wasn't just a matter of environment. It was a deeper cycle of pain and loss that may have shaped her fears as a parent. A cold chill swept through Emma, as though she had just stepped outside into a November wind. What do you mean? She stammered. She never told me anything about that. Because she wanted to protect you, Sarah replied gently. She thought shielding you from the past would allow you to live without that burden. But her silence may have trapped you both in an even heavier legacy, the one that tied your family's fear of addiction and failure back to George. Emma could hardly process what she was hearing. Her mother's fear had always felt like a shroud over her life, but this revelation felt like the veil had been torn. So George's struggles, my mother's fears, they were both a part of the same story? There is a need for healing, for understanding, Sarah affirmed. And it starts with breaking the silence. Emma, you felt so alone in your journey, but now you can see the connections. It's all part of a larger web. Tears brimmed in Emma's eyes. What if it's too late? What if I can't change any of this? We can't change the past, Emma, Sarah stated firmly. But you can rewrite your future story together. This knowledge is power. Together, you have the chance to transform hurt into healing. George looked lost in thought, his brow furrowed, but Emma could see a flicker of understanding waking in his eyes. If what you're saying is true, then that means we can help each other. We don't have to be defined by our past. Yes. Sarah exclaimed, her voice rising with excitement. You can support each other through this. Vulnerability doesn't make you weak. It's a bridge to freedom. But even as hope ignited in Emma's chest, doubt lingered. How do we actually do that? I'm terrified of what it could mean for us, for our relationship. In that moment, she could see it clearly, both daunting and beautiful. The path ahead was filled with uncertainty, bound to trials. Sarah offered a glimpse of a way through, but the shadow of their past still loomed large. Let us take it one step at a time, George finally said, changing the atmosphere with his calm resolve. We'll start with sharing our stories. All the messy parts and everything in between. Deal, Emma whispered, her heart racing. But Sarah's face grew serious once more. Before you begin, there's one last piece to address, and it could change everything you think you know. Emma's stomach churned, but she had come this far. Would she really be ready for whatever lay ahead? What is it? Emma gasped, holding George's hand tighter, ready to face yet another layer of their complicated lives. Your mother, Sarah started again, her voice trembling slightly. She didn't just wrestle with her own demons alone. There are other pieces to this puzzle. Pieces that involve your family history. Pieces that involve a promise. Emma leaned in, her breath caught in her throat. George's fingers tightened around hers as uncertainty seemed to spike in the air between them. A promise? He echoed, his brow furrowing even more. Yes, Sarah confirmed, her gaze unwavering. A promise made long ago, when your mother suffered the most. She took it upon herself to hide the truth from you, Emma. But it wasn't just to protect you. It was also to protect someone else. Protect who? Emma pressed, her heart thudding louder with each word. Your father, Sarah replied softly. He battled his own addiction. Your mother believed that if she could keep that secret from you, it would spare you the heartache she endured. But in doing so, she set into motion a cycle of silence that wounded you both. Emma felt a sudden weight in her chest. It was all too much. She had never fully understood the fractures in her family, the silence that cloaked her home like a winter fog. Why didn't she talk to me about it? Why leave me in the dark? Because she loved you, Sarah answered with compassion. But love can't shield us from harsh realities. Her silence was her way of keeping you safe, but it also kept you from knowing the truth about your own heart. You may struggle with pieces of her fear because she never let you see the whole picture. Tears slid down Emma's cheeks. It hurt to know her mother had fought so hard yet had been so alone. So, you're saying my whole life has been defined by this silence? Not defined, Sarah hurried to clarify, but deeply affected. You've inherited more than just her fears, Emma. There's strength there too. And that's where you and George come into play. George watched Emma closely, clearly processing the weight of the revelations, seeing the emotions stir within her. How can we ever unpack all of this? He asked tentatively. Where do we even start? By sharing your truth, Sarah said, her voice firm but kind. Start with the stories you've held close. The fears. The happiness. The pain. It's not about making sense of it all at once, it's about beginning to untangle that web. Emma wiped her tear-streaked cheeks with the back of her hand. What if there's too much? What if I can't bear it? You don't have to bear it alone, George reassured her, squeezing her hand tighter still. We'll face it together. We will bear it all, every part of the messy journey to seek our truths. Taking a deep breath, Sarah added, and remember, healing is a process that requires time and patience. You may need to revisit those stories as you unravel them. It's okay to feel lost, it's part of finding your way. The air hung heavily, filled with the unspoken implications of this new terrain. Emma's heart ached with vulnerability and a flicker of hope. Could this really be the start of healing for her and her family? Could they break free of the past? As silence settled around them, Emma could sense the crucial moment ahead, the point in their journey where real transformation began. Before we dive into our stories, Emma finally said, her voice steadying, there's something I need to know about my dad, something big and terrifying, isn't there? George's eyes widened, and Sarah's expression shifted to one of recognition, as if she knew a storm was brewing. Emma's heartbeat quickened suddenly, the air electrified with anticipation. What had she just opened the door to? And in that instant, everything shifted. The past seemed poised to rush forward, threatening to uncover secrets that might change everything. Would Emma feel ready for yet another revelation? Emma felt as if the ground beneath her could crumble at any moment. The weight of Sarah's words loomed large, a tempest stirring within her. Her breath quickened, and she locked eyes with George, a silent understanding passing between them. Whatever was coming next would shape their lives in ways they could hardly imagine. Tell me, Emma urged, her voice barely a whisper. What is this big secret about my dad? Sarah took a deep breath, as if gathering the courage to peel back a layer of their tangled family history. Emma, what you don't know is that your father faced demons that ran deeper than anyone realized. His struggles weren't just his alone. They were inherited, passed down through the generations. Addiction has plagued your family, and it tortured him just as much as it did your mother. Emma's heart dropped. The realization hit her like a tidal wave. She had spent so long wishing for her parents to be different, to offer her the idyllic childhood she craved, but now, this deep-rooted truth threatened to drown her in sorrow. Is this true? She asked George, seeking an affirmation amidst the storm of emotions swirling inside her. George's face was a mixture of pain and understanding, reflecting the burden he had borne all this time. I never wanted you to see it, he confessed, his voice thick with emotion. The shame, the fear. I thought if I kept you away from it, you would be safe. But I see now that it only locked you in. I was terrified of the cycle repeating. I didn't know how to break it. Emma battled conflicting emotions, anger for being kept in the dark, yet sympathy for the struggles he faced. The very man who had abandoned her now stood before her, his vulnerability laid bare. She felt her heart waver, questioning everything she had believed about him. But that means yes, Sarah interjected gently. It means acknowledging that the pain was shared and the burden too great to carry alone. A newfound understanding flickered in Emma's heart. She could feel the stubborn wall she had built around herself begin to crack. Her childhood had been marked by fear and confusion, but perhaps now, in this moment, she could choose to confront it, to step out of the shadows and into the light. Let us start to break it, Emma said, her voice stronger. Together. I want to understand. If this is our legacy, then maybe we can redefine it. Maybe we can create something beautiful from this darkness. George nodded, surprise and hope dancing in his eyes. I'm ready to fight. I've been scared for too long. I want to do better for you and for your daughters. You don't have to bear this alone, Emma. We can change our story. For the first time, Emma saw a glimpse of the father she had always yearned to know. It wasn't just about forgiveness anymore, it was about transformation. They stood together at the precipice of something new, poised to leap into their own healing. Sarah, Emma said, turning to the woman who had risked exposing deep family truths, thank you for guiding us. Let us create a safe space now to share. To unpack everything and allow ourselves to feel. With a gentle nod, Sarah stepped back, creating a shield of understanding as Emma and George faced each other. The courtroom, once a battleground, now felt like the altar for renewal. Do you remember the night of the storm? George began, his voice trembling. When your mother and I fought the night she left? I thought it was just our issues, but I see now it was so much bigger. Emma inhaled sharply, memories flooding back with echoes of chaos, yelling, and broken promises. You were both scared, she realized aloud. Running from the demons without realizing they were inside you too. Yes, George nodded sadly. Addiction loomed like a shadow, even back then. I was terrified of passing that pain on to you. I thought my absence would protect you, but it only magnified the hurt. Emma's heart ached at the thought. But it also showed me strength, Dad. I fought through so much, alone. And I don't want to go back. Let us face everything together. As they delved deeper into memories buried for too long, truths began to unfurl like petals opening to the sun. They shared tears, laughter, and moments of vulnerability as George bore the weight of his past mistakes. Emma spoke freely of her childhood, the loneliness that wrapped around her like a fog, but amidst it all, there were threads of resilience brightly woven through the fabric of her life. It was a raw, painful dialogue, but as the hours wore on, a bond started to repair slowly, but surely. A family, once splintered by silence, began to stitch together their stories into a tapestry of hope. When they finally emerged from their depths, hands clasped tightly, Emma felt a lightness she hadn't known in years. We've made it through this, she breathed, as if waking from a long nightmare. George looked at her, eyes glistening with tears of renewed hope. We did, Emma. But remember, this is just the beginning. Emma nodded, smiling through the tears that traced her cheeks. Together, she murmured, feeling a weight lift off her shoulders. United by their shared truths, the family stepped into the world outside the courthouse. The sun broke through the clouds, illuminating the path ahead, a reminder that after every storm comes the promise of a new day. Hang on, George said, pulling out his phone. Let us tell Jenna and Lily the good news. They deserve to be a part of this journey too. As Emma watched her father dial her daughters, she felt a rush of warmth. The cycle had turned, their story was being rewritten, one beautiful truth at a time. What they had unearthed was just the start of healing, a collective mending of hearts that would extend far beyond today. With a radiant smile, she faced the rising sun, determination shining through. We will break the cycle, Dad. We won't let fear dictate our lives anymore. And in that moment, Emma knew she had the courage, the strength, and the family she always longed for. Now, here comes your moment. You need to subscribe now to the channel so you don't miss out on our next exclusive stories that inspire true change in real lives. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. It really makes a difference and helps others find this kind of healing journey. Comment below and share your feelings about this ending. Your words matter. I want to know how this story touched your heart. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Let us spread hope together.